Generation Z, the new market on the block, has really started to let's say enter the workforce and start to actually earn income. So social media transactions will most likely be propelled further by this.
Discussion kembali hadir bersama saya Yundusta, dan kali ini kita akan berbincang-bincang dengan Sean Lawlor dari Intrepid. Dan Sean ini adalah CEO dari Intrepid Indonesia. Hai Sean.
Hi Yani. Nice to meet you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us also. So before we dive into the conversation, maybe you can explain to us what is Intrepid.
All right, so Intrepid is what we call an e-commerce enabler, but basically what we like to see, how we position ourselves is a leading innovative digital solutions provider. Okay. So we are basically a one-stop shop partner for brands that desire to win online. We offer services across 3 business areas: omni-channel, end-to-end management, digital marketing, as well as insights and analytics, which are all enabled by our in-house proprietary technology. Okay. So what is, let's say, maybe if I can describe the 3 pillars. So omni-channel e-commerce management is essentially an end-to-end service, both the front end and the fulfillment. So front end meaning everything that you interact with and see on the e-commerce platform, such as obviously the products and pricings, the campaigns, the creatives that you see, as well as customer service or chat. And fulfillment means obviously the warehousing and the last mile deliveries. So we manage this across let's say the marketplaces, social commerce, and brand.com. The second pillar is digital marketing, which encompasses digital brand building, influencer activations, social media management, live streaming, and performance marketing across e-commerce marketplaces, as well as Facebook and Google. Okay. And the last pillar is technology and analytics, which allows for brand system integrations, advanced performance reporting, and market and competitor insights based on comprehensive APIs, as well as state-of-the-art crawlers.
Okay. So most of your client is what? E-commerce or brands or startups maybe? Or SMEs?
So most of our clients are actually brands. So we work exclusively with let's say leading brands and brands who are maybe new to markets, but with a very big ambition to grow and grow their sales online.
Okay. So talk to me about the landscape of e-commerce in Indonesia right now. Is it changes because of the pandemic?
Yes, for sure. So I think maybe first from an overall e-commerce perspective, and quoting the E-conomy Southeast Asian report by Google, Temasek, and Bain, is reported that e-commerce usage across the board increased by 110% during the pandemic in Indonesia. Wow. And after the initial spike of 110%, it actually stabilized at 70% above the pre-pandemic levels in the country.
Wow.
And, on top of that, consumers were also spending more time on e-commerce websites during the early parts of the pandemic, and were also purchasing more online than ever before. We see that the average time spent online per day in Indonesia was at 3.6 hours before the pandemic, and it actually jumped to 4.7 hours during the lockdown period, so that initial spike, and was still well above the pre-pandemic average at 4.3 hours when restrictions started to ease. So and on top, like with that, such a great surge, the growth of e-commerce usage in Indonesia was what enabled Indonesia's internet economy to grow despite the massive decline in the online travel sector. Yeah. So Indonesia's internet economy grew from 40 billion US in 2019 to 44 billion in 2020. And out of the 44 billion, actually 73% or 32 billion came from the Indonesia's e-commerce sector. So that's more on the, let's say, the overview in general, of course, on the e-commerce, let's say, environment. But the other perspective is actually the category perspective. So we do observe a huge shift in the different categories as consumers spend more time at home. There were massive spikes in sales within certain categories such as groceries, healthcare, medical, supplements, hobby, as well as home improvement products, to name a few.
Okay. So we're still in the pandemic, but the situation right now is much more cooler than the previous 2 years. The COVID is still around, but a lot of people is becoming more convenient and going back to work. Is it going to change consumer behavior? Even though it's still a pandemic, but most of them are already have booster and stuff like that, so they tend to shop outside, shop offline instead of online, or there's no different whatsoever.
So I guess obviously with the change, it's something very fundamental, and like what we see from China when there was SARS before, it propelled the change even faster. So the rate of change grew faster during such unfortunate times. But what we do see is, let's say on consumer behavior, as people spend more time at home, since the pandemic, especially in the first year, the environment essentially pushed consumers to move to online channels as much as possible because of safety, as well as the inability to transact offline during the lockdown periods here. So some of the consumer behavior changes we see are, more users are going for alternative payments, such as digital payments.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the banking world, we see this in how, let's say, banks have stepped up their digital transformation, their digital technology, and have improved services in mobile banking. As we see in Indo, maybe BCA Blue would be a good example. That's the digital wing of BCA. And on top of that, BRI also launched its internet banking, BRI Mo. Moreover, according to a report by McKinsey, it also highlighted that Indonesian consumers grew more particular in terms of hygiene and sustainability packaging, as well as the company values of organizations which they were choosing to purchase from. We also see an uplift in trends such as quick commerce, social commerce, live streaming, as consumers are looking for more engaging experiences with also a faster and more efficient deliveries. So I think what we observed is the increased reliance on e-commerce purchases, especially for food delivery and grocery, which has led to online grocery growth and competition. For example, the growth of quick commerce platforms, like I mentioned, notably Astro and Segari, and major e-commerce platforms focus on grocery goods, as we can see with Tokopedia Now and Shopee Segar. So apart from groceries, consumer spending patterns have also shifted greatly in certain types of products. The obvious one is health and anti-COVID products, which have obviously risen in demand, vitamins, air purifiers, masks, sanitizers. But also we see this in other categories like food ingredients, kids' toys, hobby products. As you know, as we see in Indo, cycling has really exploded since the start of the pandemic. So that's obviously accounts for a big chunk of it. And also, obviously, not to forget, as people stay home more, they want to, let's say, improve their living conditions, their working stations at home. So home improvement products such as appliances like air purifiers, TVs, speakers have also risen pretty greatly. Well, apart from that, I think there are more. So consumers also are getting, more aware with social distancing and hygiene practices throughout their shopping experience. As we know, free hand sanitizers are expected in all offline establishments, and with online, expectation is on having, say, minimal contact with the delivery couriers. So I think with the surge of the of e-commerce in general, it's resulted in Indonesians becoming even more price sensitive, we would say, and due mainly to two factors. So the first is higher e-commerce usage, resulting in also greater exposure for price transparency. So when I say that, I mean like, with the intense competition within the e-commerce platforms and the growth of, online food delivery and grocery players in the market, it's really led to customers becoming more price sensitive, as it's now easier than before to compare prices across the platforms. While on top of this, consumers are also being spoiled by the promotions of these major platforms and new apps that are coming. But the second point there, it's on the overall business and job uncertainty. So unfortunately, obviously, with the pandemic, there has been an increase in unemployment in Indonesia from, I believe it was 5.2% in 2019, all the way to 6.5% in 2021. With actually a peak of 7% unemployment rate in 2020. So, so obviously that has a factor. And I would say lastly, in-home or mobile entertainment consumption has also increased. I think it's increased by 23%, mainly on social media or online watch time, according to Nielsen's, giving rise for more opportunities for digital marketers to tap into the markets.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier about social commerce. Do you think the pandemic accelerates social commerce in Indonesia right now?
Oh yes, most definitely. So although it's still in a nascent stage for certain types of products and certain types of, let's say, brands, let's say as a background, the internet penetration in Indonesia stood at about 74% in January last year, with e-commerce accounting for 20% of total retail sales in 2020. This is like significantly up from just 2% in 2016. And on top of that, active social media users in Indonesia in 2021 stood at about 62%. So we know that let's say the users are there, it's growing really fast, and basically that results also in the increased consumers, the increase in consumers' consumption for social media, which is, I believe, up 23% versus the pre-pandemic levels. And this allows for even higher social media-based transactions to happen, especially with the rise of social commerce features in Indonesia, which enables this further. For example, TikTok Shop, Instagram Shop would be good examples. And on top of that, Generation Z, the new market on the block, has really started to let's say enter the workforce and start to actually earn income. So social media transactions will most likely be propelled further by this segment, given that they're heavily reliant on social media for lifestyle inspirations.
Okay.
But I would say in conclusion, social media or social commerce is definitely growing in the market. However, it may take a little while to fully take off for all players, because we believe in the first phase, it will slowly penetrate through the C2C market. So more, let's say, less brands, but more on consumer to consumer. And this pattern, we actually come to this conclusion because we see this. This pattern is very similar with the trends for live streaming, like shopping on the live streaming channels. So across the e-commerce platforms, where most of the sales or better performance are actually generated from the C2C players versus the brands. However, for brands, social commerce is utilized right now mainly for awareness. When I say this, I'm not saying for all brands, but for, let's say, certain classes of brands with maybe a higher selling price. It's utilized more for awareness at the moment, though the rate of growth and obviously the continuous investment from the major platforms like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it does suggest that it's only a matter of time that social commerce will start to pay dividends, and it will grow to account for a larger share of sales as compared to the other channels for the brands.
Okay, interesting. So talk to me about how is your role as a platform, Intrepid, to support business and growth for users?
Okay, so I think enablers are essentially we are a growing asset to businesses and brands alike, as the competition in the e-commerce ecosystem intensifies.
Okay.
Today's generation of enablers have gone further in acting as a natural extension of businesses and brands, to
Yes.
provide innovative tech support and expertise to manage a brand's omni-channel needs, all the while still supporting the brand's commercial growth in a short period of time. So in a way, we try to view ourselves as an outsourced in-house team. So we not only handle we view ourselves as consultants, but also strong operators of the channels that we manage.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sean, for your time, and hopefully you will share more updates from Intrepid. Okay.
For sure, for sure. Well, thanks for having me again, Jenny, and I wish you all the best. Keep safe.
Thank you.